once they assume office. Now, do these people have the competence and the wherewithal to actually be presidential in case they're going to be needed to do that? 3, a degree of demonstration of loyalty, especially because sometimes you don't want to end up in a situation where, the president and, of course, their principal assistant, they're fighting, because then that also creates paralysis. I think the challenge that we have had, especially in this election cycle in Kenya, is the manner in which tickets have been issued out or candidates have been chosen. The process has been opaque and not transparent. And that, I think, has led to a lot of discontent among party followers. But when it comes to the subject or the topic at hand, yeah, it is true that there are candidates who already known, the so-called known quantities, and that perhaps subjecting to certain processes may be challenging. But subjecting candidates generally to a process, it is something that is recommended generally. It is something to be able to establish the best candidate possible. But every country and every environment has to respond to its own unique set of issues. Now, in Kenya, we kind of know certain quantities of certain candidates. And that because of what has been happening of late and the way the process has been so opaque, even just to give an example, for instance, the way they've been issuing out, tickets to candidates. So someone brings you an opinion poll, which you're not privy to the methodology that was used. And you are told you actually are performing worse than the other person. And sometimes it's true, except that the other candidate was only getting 8%, and you're getting 7.5. It's not that they were getting 55. And so, without the process, the whole process being transparent, I think it's going to be very difficult. But with regard to, let's say, the Kalonzo question, of course, Kalonzo is a known quantity. But I'm not here to be able to decide for the Azimio which candidate they should take. I think it's up to them. But what I would advise, if they want to increase their bets of winning the election, they have to bring someone who is going to have massive electoral value as well as an ability to be able to govern once they assume power. Yeah. All
right. Allow me to cross over to Washington, D.C., where we have also Peter Biara-Jack standing by to join us all the way from the U.S. Good morning, good evening, I should say. It should be 11 o'clock in Washington, D.C. Good evening, Peter Biara-Jack.
Good morning to you, Dibal, and good morning to everyone on the panel. It's wonderful to join you.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. And we know a lot is happening on that particular front in the U.S. right now. We shall discuss about the Roe and Wade debate. And I know many have come out in force on the front there of the Supreme Court to try and agitate for this particular ruling that is bound to be happening. There is a leakage, according to the Politico that we saw, that has been doing rounds as well, that the judgment will be against, of course, the Roe versus Wade ruling of 1973. But before we head there, I know you've been following the story here and the contribution from our panelists. What do you make right now? Because I think this is a make or break month for the running mate as far as the IBC is concerned. They were given at least 2 weeks by IBC so that they may come up with the names, and now the interviews are beginning today with Azimio. My panelists are contending the fact that, well, if you have Kalonzo appearing before the panel, this is sort of really demeaning for his stature. There is nothing that they do not really know about Kalonzo, as we heard from the legislator. So what new can really come out from this particular interview that they're going to be having beginning today? Your sentiments?
I don't know who has such a brilliant idea. It's not that brilliant in my opinion, because Raila knows Kalonzo quite well. He has had him as his running mate twice. Kalonzo has held the position of the vice president. He has been a minister of foreign affairs. He has held so many cabinet positions. He's a very well-known figure in Kenya. I have some reservation, of course, as I have expressed occasionally about Kalonzo, but I think Raila knows him, and there is really no need to subject someone of the stature of Kalonzo to this committee to appear and to answer questions. And I think also that is the same for Martha Karua. I don't think there's really a need for this process, in my opinion. What Raila should do is to give Kalonzo a call and have a one-on-one meeting And if he has some reservations that he has about Kalonzo, about how they can work, because obviously it's very clear to Bal what Kalonzo brings to the table. Hashi is right. Kalonzo brings the vote from Kamba, and that is a sizable vote, and that is a guaranteed vote. And I think what Raila is trying to do is to hedge. Could Martha Karua bring about the same or possibly more than Kalonzo can get from Mount Kenya, and would that be enough to push him over the edge? That one is unknown, and there is the famous African proverb that one bird in hand is better than two in the bush. And I think in this case, what Raila should do is give Kalonzo a call, let them sit down as gentlemen. If there is reservation you have about him, let them discuss one-on-one. And the same thing with Martha. If he thinks Martha has something to offer to him, let him give Martha a call, let them sit, let him have a conversation, let him work out what the details are. But in my opinion, I don't really believe there is a need for this committee. It's just completely unnecessary, and it's demeaning. And I think it's going to make people wonder also, what is Raila really trying to do? And it creates this uncertainty, which I don't think is helping his campaign. So he really needs to focus on building his team, building the cohesion, and sharpening his message so that there is really no time. And to get out there, mobilize people, and close chapter on this issue.
Well, they might think that they will say it's not really Raila per se, but it is the political operatives around him, and he's actually delegated this particular duty to the secretariat. Ahmed Ashi is...
No.
Yes.
See, Dibal, one of the first decisions that a president gets to make, and what shows your ability to make sound judgment, is the choice of running mate. The buck stops with him. It can't be the secretariat or all these people. Yep. Otherwise, how is Raila going to govern if there is all these group of people that are going to be whispering in his ear? You know, he needs to be able to make a decision. This is his decision alone. And he has to make it based on what he believes is right and based on what he believes will allow his team to win. Full stop.
Well, many will argue that this is not Raila that we know right now, that Raila is being shoehorned, and we have now the chair of Azimio, who's Uhuru Kenyatta, who's making the calls at the end of the day. So he doesn't really have, you know, that particular room to swing his cat as far as even the running mate is concerned. There are upper reaches of government who are controlling this. So he's actually on a catch-22 at the end of the day. Okay, yes, I'll come back to you. Let me just hear from Hashi.
I couldn't have agreed with Peter Ajak. Peter Ajak has really put it succinctly, you know, if I could use an English word. That is exactly the truth, unvarnished, and that is the job of the analyst or the political advisor. This is Raila who's doing this. It's Mr. Odinga who's telling the secretariat to do this. Because Junet Mohammed the other day said that we don't want a candidate to become like Ruto. But, you know, this is the really, you know, befuddling. It's a befuddling thing to say. Because the context in which Mr. Ruto came into a coalition with Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta is completely different from the context in which Raila Odinga is to select Kalonzo Musyoka. These guys were going to go to jail, Debal. So Mr. Uhuru promised and gave Mr. Ruto everything and anything he needed. Because if they did not capture state power, they had no way to defend themselves against the Hague. In this case, we have a long-term progressive, you know, I'm one of the biggest supporters of Mr. Odinga, but that doesn't stop me from criticizing